You probably know the story of the Apostle Paul when he was Saul and he was persecuting the early church after Jesus' ascension into heaven. And he was a very zealous man, of a Pharisee. He said he was trained under Gamaliel and he was persecuting the church and dragging people to prison. And he had a very powerful conversion experience. We know about his trip on the road to Damascus when he was, most times the story says he was knocked off his horse or his donkey. And sometimes it doesn't actually say that. I think that he was walking. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. He was knocked down, he was struck blind, and Jesus spoke to him. When Paul recounts this to the Galatian believers, when he's telling them a little bit about the story, just a little bit, he shares something that's very interesting. And this, what he shares, relates to the idea, the reality, the truth of Jesus in you. Even before you said, I believe, and asked him into your heart, Jesus already dwelled within you. And one of the texts that we can use is from Jesus himself in John 14:20, when he is saying that in that day, in the time coming, you're going to understand, you're going to know, you're going to realize, you're going to see that I am in the Father, you are in me, and I am in you. And he's describing, he's telling me that this union, this oneness that we have is with the Father and with Jesus, because they are one. You can't separate them. You have a oneness, a union with and in him. In fact, you were created in Christ Jesus, and in him all things are held together. These are verses we looked at before, as we have with John 14:20. So what was it that Paul reveals, or what is Paul saying that helps to expound on this or to corroborate this statement? Is in Galatians 1. Look at specifically verse 16, but we'll pick it up in verse 15. He says, but when it pleased God, he said, so before this he's talking about, you've heard of my conduct before and how he persecuted the church. He said, but when it pleased God, when it was the time, and that's what it means, basically, when he says it pleased God, when God said, this is the time now. But he says, so when it pleased God, when it was the right time, God who had separated, he said, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me through his grace. So God had already picked out, had already focused upon Saul, young Paul, had focused upon him since the time of his conception and his birth. And in fact, other translations says that that he identified him as his own, as his son. So he was separated. And this is just simply a fact that God as Father looks upon his children as his own. And he is a Father who truly loves and cares. So as Paul says, again, verse 15, when it pleased God who separated me from my mother's womb and called me through his grace. And this is the salient part. This is the important part in verse 16, to reveal his Son in me, that I might preach him among the Gentiles. And he goes on, he's trying to make a point, and this is what he introduces that with. But notice what God did. Notice what God did. He revealed Jesus in Saul, in Paul. Now, Saul was busy persecuting and dragging Christian believers to prison. And the story is notion that he was there at their execution like he was with Stephen. These are not what we would call good things. He was doing this out of his zeal and his passion for what he understood to be the truth. But he's saying God revealed Jesus in me, even when he was walking contrary. This is really significant. Jesus wasn't somewhere off, shaking his head and clicking his tongue at Saul, as he persecuted. Jesus, who is all and in all, and at some point will really know that and realize that and see that, was in Saul. And when he revealed him, there was a complete life change. When he revealed that he was in Paul, Paul's life changed. And now he began to preach this good news of Jesus, who is the good news, who is the word, who is the truth, who is the gospel, to those who are non-Jewish believers, non-Jews, to the heathen, to the Gentiles, to the non-Jews. And they began to realize and see God's love for them and his presence in them, just as Paul experienced. So when you think that you're alone, or that you are struggling, or you cannot understand somebody being God's child, realize Jesus is in you. Jesus is in that person. And if you ever doubt it, just ask him. And he will reveal, uncover, unveil his presence, his life in you and in them.